Granicus to come up. They're probably waiting for us, for me to start talking before I switch over to the live feed. But this is being broadcast, and welcome to the 2023 budget.
Actually, third chair, it's actually 2024 now.
2023, 2024, yeah.
Okay, so good evening, everybody, council members, public at home and in the crowd. This is the first of three scheduled budget study sessions for the city of Taylor. We have first up a 30-minute overview of the budget documents and just kind of a recap of documents that you see in front of you and online. Is the first document that you guys received is a smaller summary version document of the budget. I won't be going over this that much at all because it is summarized. It has the items in there for the legislation, the state budgeting act, all that stuff's covered in here, summarized. The second document is what we'll be going over a little bit more, and then we're going to have even more detail on the budgets for the departments, as you will see as we go through with the departments. So the second item right now is the budget detail overview. It's the thicker document. Mine's a little bit longer because it was printed out on legal. But this here gives you a little bit more of a detail and highlights of what's going on in the mayor's proposed 2024 budget, as well as the 23 budget amendment. For those of you who are familiar with it, during this budget process, we do ask the council to approve an omnibus budget amendment for the current year that we're in. And then what I'm going to do is go over some highlights with those items right now, and then we'll get more details when we bring the departments up and discuss their budgets. So I'm going to go to this document here, which is on the screen as well. And first of all, we have the first page is really the letter from the mayor's office indicating, this kind of a cover letter on the budget. Going to the next page. You okay, Councilman Johnson? Yeah. Okay. Going to the next page, page 2. Now we get into the top section, talk about our basis of budgeting. And real quick, what that means is the basis of accounting that we use for budgeting is really the modified accrual basis, which all our special revenue funds and our general fund use. Our enterprise funds, like the golf course, the water and sewer funds, their regular accounting is a full accrual, but we always budget them based on a modified accrual because it gives you a better idea of their cash in and out. So I just want to make a note that is the basis that we use for budgeting. And most communities use that basis for budgeting as well too. Going over on page 2, we're going over the fiscal year 23, the current year changes that are presented in this budget. We're going to concentrate mostly on the general fund. We'll make some comments on the air funds as well too. The general fund, the presented budget proposed is actually going to be revenues over expenditures of $1.2 million. That is a change that's positive change of approximately $1.7 million from the current budget. The estimated total unassigned fund balance at the end of fiscal year 23 is estimated to be $13.5 million, which is approximately 28% of your revenues. As you guys recall, during our audit, that best practice standards is that you want between 50 and 30% fund balance. So we're doing well there. Obviously, 1.7 million is it's a pretty decent discretion. So we'll go over those highlights right now. With the revenues in the general fund, the tax-related revenue is increasing about $112,000, and that's simply related to updated taxable values from the assessing department. The amount that's in our current budget was from the original estimated taxable values that was back in March of 2022. Since then, there's been some board reviews, adjustments, things like that. So all we're doing is that we're estimating that tax increase now that we have final numbers for tax year 2022. Fines and forfeiture revenue is increasing by $625,000, and that's based on the last couple of months with the traffic detail revenues. It has been significantly better than the previous 6 months. As you recall, our previous budget amendment, we actually lowered that original budget from 6.2 million to 3.5 based on those lower numbers for the first 6 months. But January and February were significantly higher than what was being received for those 6 months. So we are amending that estimate to finish the year at approximately 4.4 4.2 million some change. So we were comfortable moving that up by 625,000. The other significant items, it's on a net value, it's not that significant, but I still want to make a note is rental income for Act 51 funds and work orders for Act 51 funds. There's a net increase of 37,000. What that is, and we'll have more explanation when we talk with the departments. But what that is that DPW department is a department in our general fund, and Act 51 for major local streets are different special revenue funds. So what we do is we charge the equipment that we use and also the labor that we use to our roads from our general fund to our Act 51 fund. And the revenue in our general fund is through the rental income for the equipment, and then the work orders is for the labor charges. So there is a correlation between Act 51 and general fund DPW departments, which we'll go over more in detail when we talk about the DPW departments, I believe is tomorrow on our schedule. On the expenditure side for this fiscal year budget, the employee fringe benefits department, where we record most of our retirement expenses related to general fund, it's anticipated decrease by 387,000. That decrease is due to lower estimated share of the general employees' pension contribution for general fund employees. And the reason for that is we make an annual contribution to the general pension plan. We allocate that contribution to the different funds based on active personnel. So as some active personnel move to other funds, for example, compost, water, so the allocation actually decreases for the general fund and increases on the other side. So that's why the original estimate was based on so many FTEs in the general fund, and that actually changed, and some of the FTEs went to other funds during the year, so that's where that comes up.
Chairman?
Yes.
Am I allowed to ask questions in between? Because I apologize, I was late for a few minutes there.
No problem, go right ahead.
Okay, so just so I'm understanding this, so this amount is a decrease, but really it's just moved to other funds, so it's really not a decrease, it's just recognized somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay.
For example, we'll say employee A was in the DPW department general fund.
Okay.
That employee was a member of the pension plan. That employee went and bid on a vacancy in the water and sewer fund. Now that employee moved to the water sewer fund, so that allocation also moved to the water and sewer fund for the pension. So that's happened with a few FTEs that changed that allocation amount. So because the expense has already been paid, we pay the general pension once a year. We pay that in October. So it's already been paid, so we already know what the expense is. So we're okay. We're comfortable moving that budget to the appropriate funds.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, page 3, still going down with some of these expenses. The general administration department is decreased by 256,000, and mostly majority of that, 239,000, that decrease is just related to some miscellaneous expenditures that were originally budgeted for projects that just weren't put into effect. So those budgets were just reallocated within the budget. So, police department expenditures expected to decrease by 254,000. As I noted, 100,000 of decrease is related to less than anticipated overtime costs. As the department did increase some of their staffing throughout the year, we trended to estimate out the overtime costs, and we believe that there's $100,000 savings there. And then also there's there's also a $100,000 decrease in the compensated absences expenditure line item. And what compensated absences mean is that cash outs of unused sick and vacation time. So there was an original budget amount that now that we went through the month of February, where you have some of the automatic cash outs, if they don't use it the year before, calendar year, they get cashed out in February. So now we know the expense through March, we know that we can lower that budget amount. So it's very hard to estimate compensated absences. We don't know. Sometimes when people retire, then we see a large increase in that expense because they accumulate banks over their time. So we always make sure that we budget conservatively for that item. Yes.
Okay, so, are compensated absences cashed out always in February, or they can be cashed out anytime?
It's all based on the contract. Each union contract has different items when they cash it out. Mostly the public safety, to my knowledge, mostly public safety of them, they have, if you don't use it by a certain date in December, it gets already cashed out in February. So, but it is really based on the contract language of when decreased by $488,000. $350,000 of that is related to the compensated absences line item that we talked about before. So they had a pretty large original budget, but since they didn't have much retirements this year, and they already got their automatic cash outs, that line item can come down, so we are lowering that estimate. And $116,000 of the decrease is just based on lower than anticipated training education reimbursements, with discussions with the department head on that one. DPW, the expense is actually expected to increase by $615,000, and majority of that increase is actually related to capital outlay. When we talk about DPW department, you will notice that there was $600,000 increase in their capital outlay for this year's budget related to vehicles.